Hello, everyone. This is Lily Luna, and this is part 3 of my analysis of DMac's police interview. Okay, so what was going on when we left off? Oh, he was starting to talk about the whole, John was bringing up how in the chat log, Dustin was saying he wanted to buy her from her mom, and he was saying it sounded like Dustin wanted to take her off somewhere. And I talked a little bit about that, about how I think, that's like a secret fantasy of his. And in fact, I actually pulled up in the chat log. Well, let me play. I shoved it back a little bit so we wouldn't miss anything. So let me start it, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I found in the chat log. So let's get started.
Of what's going on. And when you tell me half the truth first and then the other half of the truth later on, and I got to ask 10 more questions, all you're doing is making it hard on me. And like I told you, judge and jury's going to hear this. You have things in here asking her
Yeah,
if she's had her first period yet.
I know.
You have things in here that sound as if
I love how he's like, I know, and yeah, his body language right there is just really revealing, how he's kind of got his head in his hand, and he's just like, I know. Because he knows exactly what's in there and what he wrote, and he knows it's, not making him look good. It's not helping him. It's burying him is basically what's happening right here. And I, he couldn't deserve it more. It's it's so weird because he, just to look at him, and they mentioned this in the sting footage. The one guy says, you start to feel a little bit sorry for him because he does have this condition, which is going to be something he's going to have to struggle with for his entire life. So it's like, just looking at him, you want to feel sorry for him, but when you read the chat log and you hear these things that he said and done, it's just, no, I don't feel sorry for him at all, whether he's got this disability or not. It's like the guy said in the Dateline thing, that's no excuse for trying to molest a child, especially with the things that Dustin had on his computer, and the things that he says to the decoy, which we'll get into. So let's move on.
you want to take her off somewhere, buy her from her mom.
Yeah, that was a joke.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I said a lot of
Then
things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said this in part 2. You say it one time, okay, that's a joke, fine. But you say it over and over and over again, and it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily do it, because I don't think that Dustin would ever be willing to take that kind of risk where he'd actually take off with the girl. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll do it, but when you say it over and over again, it's definitely a desire. It's some kind of, it's like a fantasy of his. If he thinks if he thought he could get away with doing it, I think that he would. This is what I brought up in the chat log, was because I thought I remembered him saying something like this. He's talking about buying her from her mom, one of the many times he brings that up. And this one line here is like, she could sell you, then I would own you, which, this is later in the chat log. This is toward this. He said that on 10:15, and why isn't it? Oh, and when was the date they met up? I think it was like 10:18 or something. Yeah, I don't know, some 10:19. I don't know, it was somewhere in there. So this was towards the end of the chat log, where he is getting, he's getting bolder, he's getting more aggressive, he's getting, he feels like he has her hooked now, and he can kind of say a little bit more about what his true feelings are. So that's a little disturbing that he says that he would own her, which, implies a lot of things that aren't very nice to think about. So that's what I mean when I said the chat log gets dark. You kind of sometimes have to read between the lines, but it's it's definitely quite disturbing in parts, and that is definitely one of them. So moving on.
That you're willing to take her, marry her. You want her to send her panties,
I know that one was. I don't know.
her social security number.
Oh, and he really wanted that too, by the way. That, we all know that one, send me a pair you're wearing for 2 days straight, whatever he said. When that comes up in the chat log, he asks her like every single day. And of course, the decoy is making excuses. She's saying, oh, I can't find any stamps, or oh, no, I forgot to do it, or oh, I don't want to wear them for, she just kept making excuses because obviously they're not really going to send him that. But he would ask her like every day, and he was like, I'm gonna keep bugging you until you send them to me. So that was he really, really wanted her to do that. That wasn't just a one-off or a joke or anything. He really, really wanted that, which is disgusting. But moving on.
Like I said,
So that you can find her.
if something happened after, if we lost contact between now and when she was 18, that's what that was for. I'm being totally honest. And the panties was a stupid thing, and I was just to see if she was real.
All right.
And that's being honest.
Yeah, because there's no other way to tell if somebody's real than to get her to send her underwear in the mail to you. That's the only possible way. I mean, what he and this is, of course, he starts going back into saying, I'm being honest. I'm being honest. No, you're not, Dustin. Every time he says that, it means he's lying his ass off. He pretty much, almost every single thing he says in here is a lie. There's a lot of half truths, a lot of withheld details, and there might be some things here and there that are like I believe when he said that he wouldn't do something like try to kill her or anything like that. That I believe, but all this other stuff, no, he's just completely lying, and he's not very good at it.
On the 13th, you knew she was a 13-year-old girl, correct? By what I just read you, and you just told me that, right?
I'm guessing so. I'm bad with dates.
Okay. That was 7 days ago. And she being virgin, supposedly, is what you're thinking, or...
Yeah, I'm bad with dates. Again, he's trying to sort of, he doesn't outright say it there, but he's trying to lean back on the whole, my memory's bad thing. But yeah, I don't believe that. He knows exactly when it was said and what was said. Like John just said, that was a week prior to this day right here. So yeah, that's not working, Dustin.
or whatever. You're saying I
She
can't
said
wait.
she was.
You're saying I can't wait to get your cherry.
Yeah.
Which,
Ugh, I hate that
correct me if I'm wrong,
phrase.
because I'm an old man and I might have been out of the system for a while, but that means that you're going
take
to
her virginity.
you're going to take her virginity.
But
Now, hold on a
That's
second.
fine.
And you came up here
I didn't have
at
a
11 o'clock at night to meet
because
her.
I couldn't get here any faster.
Okay.
How is that an excuse because I couldn't get here any faster? How is that making you look any more innocent? Because that actually makes you look worse because again, he drove 5 hours 5 hours to get to the Sting house, give or take maybe a little bit. I mean, that is a long ass drive. I mean, especially there and back, which obviously he didn't make it back at this point, but that is a long, long way to go. And yeah, you don't stop by a young girl's house at 11 o'clock at night, whether even if you hadn't driven that far or not, just to hang out or make friends or whatever he wants John to believe he was there to do. It's just funny how he says, oh, because I couldn't get there any sooner. Like, if he had showed up at 5 o'clock to do this, it wouldn't have made any difference. It still would have had the same results.
I'd have been here during the day.
You'd been here during the day.
And I'm being honest.
You've sent her pornography over the internet. Is that
one
correct?
photo.
And what's that a photo of?
Because she said she'd never seen a penis before.
Mm-hmm. And why did you send it to her?
I don't know. I don't know. Because she said she'd never seen one.
No, it's what John said is about to say here. No, it's to get her excited about sex. It's to, pique her curiosity and to, maybe, like I said, get her excited, get her more comfortable with the idea, because that's a common tactic when they, any kind of predator sends a child, pictures like that, maybe pictures of other, children engaging in those kind of acts. That's just to get them, it's to normalize it for them. It's to get them, more comfortable with the idea, more, excited about the idea. That's exactly what the motivation behind that is. But yeah, again, he starts trying to frame it like he's just a nice guy and he's just trying to help her out. Like, oh, well, she said she'd never seen one before, and when people ask me for things, I try to help them out. I'm just, oh God, he annoys me so much. I really just want to punch him in the face or hit him over the head with his cane or whatever. Oh, he really gets me. He really gets me aggravated when I think too much about it. So let's move on.
Okay.
And I mean, if somebody asks me a question
See, there he
out
goes.
of curiosity or how do I do something, I'm stupid enough to tell. I try to help people. I share knowledge if I have
Hey,
it.
remember, we're being honest with
I
each
know.
other.
I know.
Okay.
I'm being honest with you.
Let's be honest, okay?
I am.
If somebody
Oh, and I'm getting so sick of hearing I'm being honest. I'm being like, shut up. No, you're not. You are not. Stop saying that. It just makes you sound even more like a liar. My God.
asks you how to build a birdhouse, you might send them a diagram. Okay.
Yeah, but
A
that
girl that
was stupid.
age asks you or says she never seen a penis, and I don't recall her asking you. I've read the entire string of chat, and she never asked you to send her what a picture of penis would
Yeah,
look
she
like,
didn't.
right?
I asked her if she wanted to see it, and she said yeah.
Hold on. But she's asking you or telling you she's not seen a penis or nothing, right?
Correct.
Were you trying to get her excited about sex?
Yep.
No. No, sir.
How many of these chats do I have to read out loud for you to say the truth of what you were doing? You're asking her to touch herself. You're asking her if you show up, will she touch you? If that's not trying to get
I'll keep it going for a minute.
excited about sex, what's it trying to do?
That's a very good question, John. Yeah, that is another thing that he pushed her to do, to, touch herself, play with herself. He quite often tried to get her to do that. That was definitely, there's several things in the chat log that he brings up over and over and over again. There's just no way that he can wiggle out of this. But it makes me wonder because John is obviously really pushing for a confession out of him about what he was intending on doing, and I would think that the chat log would stand on its own. Like that would be enough evidence to show what what the truth was of what he was doing, like John said. But I don't think that they would be wasting so much time on trying to get a confession if they didn't really need it. So they must really need that bit of evidence to to hold up in court to make sure they get a conviction. But it's a little, maybe it's just something about the legal system that I'm just not picking up on or not understanding, because I've said before, I'm far from an expert. So, there could definitely be something I'm just missing. But yeah, I would think that the chat log would be enough, because there's just no question when you read it of what he was trying to do. I mean, there's no way that it could be read as anything other than what it is. Moving on.
You're not sending Birdhouse.
There was a few of them that was.
Did you send that pornography to introduce her to sex?
Yep.
No, sir.
Why did you send it then?
Because she said she never seen one, and I mean, I'm being honest.
Okay. Why does a girl that age have to see one?
I don't know. I don't have no answer for that one. There is no.
Was it to educate her about sex?
Yeah, I like how he tried to do that little laugh there. Like he's trying, even if he may not even fully realize it, but he's trying to get things to get a little bit more lighthearted, like they were earlier in the interview when John was being a little bit more friendly, talking to him, like a buddy. But no, John's in serious mode now, and he's not gonna go back to that at this point. He's really good at what he does. He's a really good interrogator. He knows when to be serious, when to, be a little bit more friendly with him and, get him, he knows when to push and when to back off a little bit. Yeah, he's probably the best one I've seen out of the police interviews that I've watched, for the, all the Catch a Predator guys, all the ones whose interviews are available. I think he's definitely probably the best one that I've seen.
Subconsciously, I guess so, because I mean, I didn't think that when I seen it neither, and I mean, I was just.
She was your girlfriend.
That must have been as good as saying yes when he said subconsciously, I guess so, because John seemed to relax a little bit after he said that. Like he started, moving the papers around or maybe pushing them aside or something. So that seemed to be he was satisfied with that answer, and that was as good as saying yes. That's my reading of that anyway.
On the internet, and I can appreciate that. A girlfriend, you're thinking you're gonna have a girlfriend for life, correct?
Yeah, because I get lonely, and I mean,
understood.
A lot of people look down upon me for my disability, and it hurts. And
hey,
I've had mental breakdowns.
There he goes again with trying to get John to feel sorry for him, going back to the whole disability thing. And I think most people can identify with being lonely, and a lot of people can identify with, feeling like, you might never meet anybody, you might never find anybody, to love you, to be in a relationship with. A lot of people can identify with that. And, even a lot of people can identify with using the internet to find, to reach people, to connect with people that, and sort of forming these online relationships, a lot of which never moved to the next level. They never moved to real life. They're kind of like these fantasy relationships because they're not really real. It's all over the internet. I can understand that completely, but most people who can identify with that don't go after young children. They don't try to molest kids. That's not, I mean, yeah, I completely understand somebody being in a bad place in his life, being lonely, feeling like it's hard to make friends because of his condition. I get that. I completely understand that, but it is not an excuse to go after young children. No, he has a desire for young children. There's no question about that. It wasn't something in his life that caused him to do that. No, he wants young children. I mean, you really can't argue with that. Now, whether he wants prepubescent children, uh, I think is something maybe you could have a kind of a debate about, because it does come up in the chat log, which I'll I don't think it ever comes up in the police interview, but I'll bring it up as it becomes more relevant, because there is a mention of a younger sister that at some point Dustin says he wants to have a three-way, but I'll get into that a little bit later on, because there are a few details about that that you could kind of debate about. So moving on.
Looking at a chubby bald guy, buddy. It ain't
Well, you ain't chubby.
It ain't.
I'm chubby.
Yeah, Dustin is right about that. Like, John, yeah, you're not pulling that one off. Like, you're not chubby at all. Yeah, he's, doesn't have a whole lot of hair, but John's a good-looking guy. Like, I think I actually read in the Temple of TCAP forums that I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody had said that John took off he was actually married at the time of the interview, and that he took off his wedding ring before he went in there to kind of try to play up the whole, like, oh yeah, man, I get it's hard to meet people. If he did, that's that's very clever. Like I said, I don't know if that is true or not, or where that person heard that, but even if it wasn't true, it's still very clever to use the tactic of, I identify with you. I get you. But yeah, John's a good looking guy, so he's not really that's not really believable on his part. Like, Dustin wasn't even really buying that. He's like, well, you're not chubby. You know, Dustin is, like he just said. Moving on.
Ain't easy. I know it ain't easy.
So, I mean,
Okay? I know it ain't easy, man. But you met her. She was your girlfriend. You were gonna come up here. You were gonna meet her. You're gonna watch some movies, right?
Yeah, that's what
movies were you gonna watch?
I don't know.
Okay.
I figured the way she described her parents,
if she was willing, based on everything you said, were you gonna have sex with her?
You want the honest truth?
That's why I'm sitting here.
I think he does, Dustin.
I was going to meet her, and we may not have, if we got along, if not.
Why did you bring the KY jelly?
I love how he keeps using the "if we got along" like it's some kind of defense. Like, he keeps saying, oh, well, I wouldn't have if we didn't get along, but if we did, I might have. Like, who the hell cares if you got along or not? If that's not that's not a defense for having sex with an underage child, whether you got along or not. I guess it's just he's trying to make himself come across as a good guy. That's what that is. That's the only that's the only tactic that he can think of to go with, is that he's just this nice, like I said in the part 2, he's just this nice country boy, and he's just a nice guy, and these things, he keeps getting wrapped up in these things with underage children just as a complete accident. Like, he's the real victim here, guys. He's the one who these things just keep happening to. It has nothing to do with him and the fact that he's a freaking pedophile. He's really trying to make himself come off as a nice guy, and thankfully it's not working in his favor at all.
It was to have sex, correct? With
if it led up to that, because, I mean, like I said, if it led up to that, if I didn't plan on having sex, I didn't come up here planning on not having sex, having it either way. Like I said, I picked it up. I grabbed it. I grabbed a few things real quick.
Okay. If I'm going out on a first date, my first thought isn't throw some KY jelly in the truck. If I know that this girl is a sure thing, I'm going to throw some KY jelly in the truck.
And, I mean...
Did you throw the KY jelly in the truck because you're pretty sure you're going to have sex if somebody wants you to come that far to see them?
No, sir. I mean...
You didn't take it that she wanted to have sex from... Do I have to read the chats?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, he really doesn't want him to read the chats again, because he knows how damning that is. And yeah, John's completely right. You don't if you're bringing KY, that KY jelly has a very specific purpose. You know, there's no other reason to have it with you. And he tries to say, "Oh, well, I don't know. It might be hand lotion. It might be KY. I'm not really sure." Either way, who the hell cares? You know exactly why it's there and exactly why. And but again, he must really need Dustin to confess to that, because I guess just because he really pushes for him to tell him why he brought the KY jelly. And I would think just the fact that he brought it is evidence enough that of what his intention was. But they, I mean, maybe they just push so hard for the confession just so they really have a solid case and they really can't question any of it. That's my best guess, because he obviously really needs his confession. Otherwise, I don't think they would waste their time on it.
Pretty much knew
It
that you were
was
coming up here for sex, correct?
no, sir. It was one of those 50-50 things, and I understand where you're coming
Are
from.
you gonna make me read the chats again?
No, sir.
Oh, that's nice, Dustin. It's nice that you understand where John is coming from. Like, it's like when he says in the when he's with Chris Hansen, he says, and you know, I understand both ways, but she egged it on a little too, and like, shut the fuck up. God, he makes me. I think he pisses me off more than Lauren, because Lauren really pisses me off at certain points in the chat logs and stuff. But I think, yeah, I think Dustin gets me more worked up than Lauren does. I think he's definitely worse.
I understand what we said, and
Okay.
I asked her if we was. And
Where do you want my sperm first?
I don't know.
Mouth, pussy, or ass?
Nice. Yeah, he's like, I know, like he because there's nothing you can say to that. You know, there's just nothing you can't. I mean, that's a very clear and blunt statement. So he's really starting to, when he doesn't want John to read from the chat log, obviously, because it just, every time he does, it's like he's just getting buried deeper and deeper and deeper into just a pile of crap. And it's really satisfying to watch. It's really satisfying to watch him squirm and watch him, you know, realize even more how deep he's in now. It's really it's quite satisfying to watch.
I, I mean, that wasn't in reference of meeting today.
Okay.
Right.
All I want to do, okay,
A lot of that.
is get on with this interview, but we got to get over this hurdle,
I know.
okay?
I know.
We got to get to the truth
I'm
of why
I'm
you threw
being
the
honest.
KY jelly in there. Did you come up here expecting to have sex with this girl because of her emails back to you? And
No,
you
sir.
saying you want to have sex, and she's like, yeah, sounds cool.
No, sir. I mean, it was one of those 50-50 things. She wanted.
50.
I like how John says it the way it's written in the chat log. Like, yeah, like that's how they, you know, they're trying to type like a teenager would. So that's kind of funny.
50.
If we could have had sex, we could not have had sex. And I mean,
But you would have had sex if you hit it off with her.
if we got along and I thought it was a meaningful relationship, honestly, then yeah.
Okay.
See, I think that's as good as, because he did say yes. He had a sentence before that. And how are you gonna, when you first meet somebody? I mean, I understand that they chatted for a little bit, but still, for like 3 weeks or something, when you first meet somebody, how would you even know if it's gonna be a meaningful relationship? You can't know that soon. So that's a pretty ridiculous statement. But I think when, after he said that, John puts the papers away because he's like, okay, I got him to say yes. So, you know, that's pretty much that.
But if we didn't get along, no. Because I'm not one of these people that.
Well, you asked her to be naked for you to get here.
Uh-oh.
In one of your chats way back when y'all talked about
He
me.
doesn't even have a
The first time you
response.
said something about being naked when you get there in your panties or something like that. Forget exactly how you worded it.
I'm trying to think of that one myself, sir.
No,
I'm
you're-
being honest.
I want to get you
No, what he's trying to do is he's trying to think of a defense, and he can't. He just can't. There's nothing you can say.
drunk.
later on.
Yeah. This is a
Yeah.
12-year-old girl. Do you know the drinking age in Kentucky?
18.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
21,
say.
dummy.
Oh, it.
But let me
Yeah,
tell
I
you
mean,
this.
yeah,
Let
it's
me tell you
21,
this,
but I
okay?
wouldn't.
Remember what I told you before about a judge and jury's going to hear this.
I know.
This sounds to me like you wanted to hurt somebody. Would
Yeah.
you be mad if I got you drunk and had sex with you however I wanted and the next day you were in pain?
Okay, yeah, that is. I believe he taught. Yeah, obviously he's reading from the chat log. He says that in the chat log, and there's another. I don't. This isn't something that John reads out, but there's another point. It might be during the same conversation, where he says something like that. Like, what if you're in pain the next day and you wouldn't get me in trouble, would you? Like, meaning she wouldn't cry rape after the fact. He really wants to make sure that. So it, and he says something about some other girl who I can't remember if she said she did it to him or did it to, but he may have been talking about the kinds of girls that will. He's says there's a certain kind of girl that will agree to have. Or no, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, he was talking about a former partner of his. He said they got drunk and she was feeling all over him, like grabbing his penis and everything. And then I guess the next day they slept together, and then she says, "Well, you took advantage of me." But who knows what the actual story is there? I mean, I'm not inclined to believe Dustin's side of anything. And I mean, that it could be true. I mean, things like that do happen. It could be, but like I said, I'm not really inclined to believe anything he says at this point, especially anything involving sex. And yeah, the fact that he has this desire to, have sex with her really hard, not and not stop even if it's causing her to be in pain. That's just really, I mean, I get the concept of wanting to go at it, sort of roughly wanting to, really go at it and just be unrestrained. I get that. I get that. But like John said, we're talking about a 12, 13-year-old girl. I mean, this is, it's just really, it's really, really, really disturbing.
I want to F you really hard one time. Now, when you were coming up here,
I forgot I even had that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I
that's
bet
what
you
wanna
did.
do. That's what you're telling her you want to do.
That
Okay.
was not.
If you have a meaningful relationship, were you wanting to have a meaningful relationship and make love to this girl, or were you wanting to just do her real hard and treat her bad and beat on her? Or
I was
what?
wanting to have a real relationship with her.
Yeah.
That was.
I wonder why John asked that specific question when he says, did you want to make love to her, or did you want to just, treat her bad and do her really hard? And I mean, legally, that it doesn't matter whether he wanted to, make love with her or do it the other way. It still is statutory rape. So what does that matter? I guess he's just kind of going along the, trying to see if Dustin had the intention of, beating on her or, hurting her in some other way, aside from obviously what, just the intention to have sex with her is hurting her. But if he was going to try to like physically harm her in any other way, I guess that's what he's trying to determine now, because he can probably see he knows just from having read the chat log that Dustin is not this nice innocent guy that he tries to put off. So that must be what that's all about.
That was meant for much later on, and I don't even know why I even come up with that one and said that. You know?
But if things would have worked out, you'd have had sex with her tonight.
If we got along and stuff. And I mean, I don't know.
All right.
I mean, I've met people offline before, and I've met people.
You spend a lot of time on the computer?
Yeah, because I mean, I sit there and I play games on the computer and on the Xbox.
He really didn't want to answer that. You heard him let out that big sigh when John asked him that, and I believe he does spend a lot of time, and probably a lot of the time is spent doing the things that he says, playing games, doing this, doing that. Because I guess he did some sort of work. I know he, I guess, made these wrestling DVDs, and he, I think, was working at a flea market one day a week. But it sounds like he didn't really have a full-time or even a part-time occupation, so he had a lot of spare time. But I think the reason he's not wanting to go into that is because of what we find out here, that the child pornography that he has on his computer. That's why I'm thinking he kind of sighed like that, because he's like, oh, let's not even go here, but we're going to, and it's going to be great to watch because you suck, Dustin.
360, and it's. I mean, I don't have much else to do because I mean I've tried to look for a real job, and it's impossible to find a job. It's going to be real impossible after this.
I don't know if I would say it's impossible. I can appreciate that it's probably difficult. It's probably difficult with that kind of disability because it does limit you physically, obviously. So, I mean, there are some jobs that you would not be able to do just, because of being physically challenged like that. So I don't know if I would say it's impossible, though. I mean, I don't share a disability, at least, not one that's anything like what Dustin has. So I can't really speak to that personally, but I don't know if I would say that it's impossible. I think maybe if he tried a little bit harder, he could find something. He might. I mean, he lives with his mother. It sounds like he doesn't pay her rent or anything. So I think he probably just got himself stuck. He's satisfied with where he's at. He's able to spend most of his free time on the computer and making wrestling DVDs and doing all that. So he probably just didn't really try to improve his life or anything. That's my analysis of it anyway. So moving on.
But people look so down.
Computers.
There he goes,
if you
trying to do that again.
Place to meet friends.
Yeah, and I mean, other than this situation, that other one I told you about, I've never done anything like that.
What all chat rooms do you visit?
The Tennessee ones I listed earlier, like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Where am I at? I'm at almost 39 minutes, so I'll run it another couple minutes, and then because I think he's starting to ask about the computer stuff, and I think we're starting to get into the child porn stuff, so I'll cut it off before we get into that, and we'll cover that next time. So moving on.
I think.
How do they look on the internet? Is it Tennessee 1 or something?
Yeah. You just sign in.
Is he crying? He looks like he's crying a little bit.
Chat room.
Wrestling chat room. Have you ever met anybody in any other chat rooms that you've had sex with?
Yes.
Any of them underage?
No, sir.
No. What's their screen names?
Even if there were, he's never going to admit that. God only knows what the real truth is. I think he goes on to tell him a couple of he says one is like XX, perfect drug XX, which in this took place, what, 2006? Yeah, that total, or 2007. Well, actually, that's kind of late for somebody to be referring to ecstasy. Maybe it's just, I know XX was like a trendy way to have your screen name. If this had been like 2003 or something, I could totally see that being somebody's screen name if it was referring to that particular drug, because that was kind of its heyday, if I remember correctly. Um, but yeah, let's see, we're at 40:20 now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up because, yeah, we're starting to get into the computer stuff and the stuff that he had on his computer. So I will cover that next time. So yeah, until next time, this has been Lily Luna, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.